Good evening. Welcome to Love Talk. I'm Gregory Morgan. Thanks for joining me. Martin Luther King Day is an interesting day because we're not celebrating his death. We're celebrating his life and his accomplishments, and we're acknowledging something that a man accomplished, a vision and a dream that he spoke into existence in a world where there was no agreement whatsoever. And agreeing with his vision, it could actually get you killed, hurt, or worse, and eventually did get him killed. So I want to speak about that just a little bit here today, not only to honor the man and his vision, but to honor all people who have the insight, the courage to stand up in the face of no agreement and to stand for something that almost everybody would agree is impossible, and yet to stand for it anyhow. Not just to stand for it like a position, but to stand for it like this shall be. I'm calling it into existence. I'm declaring, standing where I'm standing today, looking out into the future and calling this forth into existence. That's a very powerful thing, and it's true that many times people who have changed the world by taking such a powerful stand in the face of all opposition have gotten themselves killed. That's a fact. That's a historical fact. And so, consequently, we have been programmed to not stand up against the norm, stand up against what is happening socially all around, because it might get you hurt. It would certainly get you outcast, and it might not, at the very least, be popular. And so you might not get invited to the party that everybody's having who have agreed with however it's going. And so I want to celebrate the courage that it takes to do that, because even though it certainly involved race in this country, it was more than that. It wasn't just about who we are as black people or white people. It's who we are as humanity that was being spoken to. There are many white people and people of other races that marched together with them and stood up for that. And many of them gave their lives. Many of them, it cost them their careers, their lives, their families, their well-being to take a stand for such an unpopular movement at the time. So I want to acknowledge and congratulate all of you who have ever stood for something and called it into existence, whether it be as simple as a better job or career, a better education, a better state of physical well-being and health, a better financial situation, a better relationship, a better marriage, transforming your body, transforming your life, transforming the lives of others. Causing transformation in the lives of others can be a risky business. And so I want to congratulate all of you who have ever taken such a stand and who have paid the price and who has seen their vision come into existence. Those of you who are parents who have children who have become whole and complete and successful and in their lives, who've gone on to have greater education and great families of their own, congratulations. In great part, that happened out of your vision, out of your envisioning something, and I'm certain that there were many times during your process in which it didn't look like it was going to turn out that way. And so you kept standing for it and causing it and doing whatever it takes to make something happen that maybe had some resistance to it. So I'm congratulating you too, because you're the ones who actually make change and transformation go on in the world. And without you, we would all be moving backwards, because life works like that, doesn't it? Just like in the plant world, take any plant that you can see. It's either growing or it's dying. It's either going forward and developing and growing and getting more of itself, or it's deteriorating and getting less of itself and disintegrating and going back into the air and back into the earth. Okay, so if you are somebody who makes things grow, whether it's plants or children or other human beings or your finances or businesses or the hearts and minds of children, if you're a teacher of some kind, or whatever it is that you do that makes things grow and develop, I'm congratulating you, because the general law of the universe is one called entropy, and entropy is the tendency for organized systems to disintegrate. In other words, to have no integrity, to lose their integrity. That's what it means to disintegrate. They become unintegrated. And so for every system that you can see that's organized, that somebody has caused into existence by their efforts and their human consciousness, you will see forces in nature and in other human beings that are working to cause it to fall apart, to come apart. And it's not even that they're evil or bad or anything like that. It's just natural that systems and order becomes disorderly and unsystematized. So if you see something that's working and that's been working, people who have left a legacy that has lasted into future generations, who have put something into place that stayed there and kept getting better, that was somebody who used their life energy, their time, their money, their energy, their consciousness to cause something into existence out into the future, into a future that they may not ever benefit from, into a future for other people, for other generations, out into the future. Why? Because it was the right thing to do, because it was in harmony with who they saw themselves as being in the world, because those people make the world go round, and those people cause order and out of chaos, and those people cause health and well-being and full self-expression for generations to come, in spite of the fact that it might even get them killed. Okay, so not to put a heavy tail on that conversation, but in spite of anything, I will say, in spite of any opposition, they take this stand and make it happen. And so thank you for doing that. Thank you for being that. Those of you who are watching and that are hearing this message, whether you're watching it live right now today on television or whether you're watching it years from now on YouTube or something else, thank you for doing that. I know who you are, and I'm standing for you and with you. Embrace Growth is all about living, not just leaving. I mean, we want it to happen while we're still here, right? So I say living a legacy of love for future generations, okay? So call in. What I want to do is I want to talk about 3 stages of development. You could call them 3 stages of completion. And the reason I want to talk about that with you is that in your relationships with other people, the dissatisfaction that you experience. Now, if you're happy and whole and complete and satisfied and fully self-expressed and growing ever more so every day, and more in love and more fulfilled, and have a greater and greater vision of yourself and of your partner and of the future, then you are in a stage of development that I will speak about towards the end of the show. And so I don't want you to think that this show is not for you. But there are stages of incompletion that people experience, and then they wonder why their relationships aren't working. And there's nothing wrong with those people. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with me. I have been through all of those stages of development and completion and incompletion, and that's why I can talk about them, because I've experienced them from the inside out. And I took the time to sit down and examine and write about and teach about some of these stages of development that I have been through and that I see other people going through. And so it's very easy for somebody who's actually been someplace to tell where somebody is. Have you ever been like somebody's asking you directions on the phone and they're at a place where you know exactly where they're at? So you can tell them, okay, it's the door on the right, or, look in the drawer, it's the third one on the left, and so forth. You can actually guide them and give them directions, even though you're not there anymore, as if you were there, because you have been there and you know very clearly where everything is. So that's what it's like to talk about some of these stages of development that I've been through. What I share with you on the show, Love Talk, is simply from my own experience. Now, I have studied a lot of things, neuro-linguistic programming, hypnosis, ontology, psychology, many, many different disciplines, and several spiritual disciplines that usually revolve around meditation and getting to know oneself, and then having a deeper insight into the world because you have had a deeper insight into yourself. I've also studied and practiced and taught dance and theater and martial arts. So all of those mediums, dance, theater, martial arts, and psychology, and all those things, have given me access to a kind of seeing and vision that I want to share with you. And it's from my own experience, not because I went to school and got a diploma or a degree or something like that, and now some other authority outside myself has now authorized me to speak about it. No, it's from my own authority and my own experience that I share with you what I share with you on the show. And it's from my own true heartfelt vision of what I would like to cause into the future for future generations. And so very often, like the people I was just congratulating, I find myself standing for something in the face of sometimes no agreement or no understanding of what it is that I'm standing for. So I'm standing for you today, I'm standing for your relationships, and what I'm standing for is causing some clarity in areas that you will find yourself in. How do I know you'll find yourself there? Because if it's true for me, it must be true for you. And I don't think that even though we are from different cultures, where you may be a woman and I'm a man, we may be from a different generation or age group, we have one thing that's in common. We have several things in common. But the thing that we have in common is our humanity. And here's what I'm going to say that is probably closer to the heart of it, and that is this: there is no stronger drive than the drive to have what we know inside, our inner knowing, our inner presence, our inner being, expressed in the world out there. We seek to find completion and fulfillment in the outer world. In other words, we want to experience it. It's not enough to know it or to feel it. We want to have the experience of it, and there's hardly anywhere that will teach you how to do that. There's not hardly anywhere that you could go and take a class on that. How do I know how to have what's inside of me, my personal power, my passion, my love, what I dream of, what's important to me, what brings tears to my eyes and gives me chills and goosebumps? How do I bring those things into fruition out in the world and live them as a part of, as an expression of my daily life, and share them with other human beings so that we actually can celebrate life itself expressed through us and as us? How do we do that? People don't teach that very often anywhere. I don't even know what you would call that class. The reason I say this is the strongest drive is to have the inner world and the outer world be congruent. In other words, to match up. And what drives us crazy, and I mean like really crazy, like you're crazy and I'm crazy, is when we pretend that the inner world and the outer world match, but we truly inside ourselves know that it doesn't. And then we get caught up in the illusion that we have projected into the outer world, or misrepresenting ourselves. In other words, being inauthentic in our world. So we live an inauthentic life because, after all, it's the only life we have once we start down that path of being inauthentic about who we are and what we really truly desire and what we're passionate about. And we accept this life that's sort of good enough, okay, somewhat acceptable, Or sometimes it's completely unacceptable, but we accept it anyhow because we have to survive and we don't know what else to do with ourselves. Or the alternative sounds even more frightening, or we don't know how we can make a living at it. Or what will other people say? We might find ourselves alone or rejected if we were to truly tell the world what we really feel, what we really love, what we're really passionate about. So we end up living this inauthentic life. And the feeling of that is a feeling of incompletion, like I am incomplete. And so that is the first stage that I'm going to speak about. I'd like for you to look at where is it that you feel incomplete in your relationships in life? What is it that like if that was there, you would be thrilled to get up in the morning, thrilled to participate in your relationship, thrilled to participate in your life. The 3 stages of development I'm going to talk about, I'm going to give them to you very briefly. Depending on another to be whole. Okay, I'm incomplete and I need someone else to be complete. There's another stage that most people will never get to anyhow. But let's say you've done some seminars and some workshops and you've, meditated or done some spiritual practice and you've gotten to a place where you are whole and complete within yourself and you don't need anyone. There's a lot of people that get to that place. They're actually happy being just with themselves. They're whole and complete. And that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. They're just whole and complete and they don't need anyone. Fine. And then there's another space that's called being whole and complete just isn't enough. There's something possible that if I could share with another, I could go even beyond being whole and complete. And I don't need to do it. I don't have to, and it's possible, so I can. So I'll leave you with that. We'll take a brief break, and then we'll be back in just 6 minutes on Love Talk. Welcome back to Love Talk. My name is Gregory Morgan, and I'm talking about 3 stages of completion or incompletion, depending on how you look at it. You could also look at these as stages of development for human beings, but we arrive at a stage that is given to us mostly by our conditioning, not by any kind of introspection or growth and development that has come from the product of as a product of our own seeking to learn, but we sort of grow and it happens to us, okay? And part of the main reason that it happens to us is that others in our environment, meaning your parents, your teachers, your friends, in other words, the model of relationship that has been given to you and that you have inherited from your environment without ever having to think about it, without ever having to try to understand it, or without ever having to examine whether it's working or not working. You just inherited a model of relationship. It's been given to you through poetry, songs, stories, dramatic plays and shows, and I'm going to give you what the key to it is. The key to this state of mind is an inner dialogue, an inner reality that you don't even know you have, called I want to, but I can't. I want to, but I can't. That I want to, but I can't inner dialogue, which is the seed dialogue, if you will. It's the seed that grows the plant called codependent relationship that we have all inherited. Now, when I say we all, obviously all general statements like that are not true. All general statements are not true, because there is an exception to every general statement. So when I say all, I'm including myself in the largest category, if you will, of humanity. There are very rare individuals who have been born to and raised by very alive and enlightened and awakened people in an environment that is alive and enlightened and awakened. And so I am not speaking to those people or about those people. I'm speaking to you and me, those of us who grew up with the model of codependent relationships. So getting back to this, I want to, but I can't, well, that is the core of all dramatic storylines. If you're a screenplay writer or a playwright or a songwriter or any kind of creator that creates something that has a dramatic theme to it, drama, all drama is based on an unseen, unspoken, I want to, but I can't conversation. There's always something that is outside of one's reach, something that's very big, something that's important, something that's vital, that would change everything, but the hero or heroine, the victim of the story, the main character in the story, in which case in your life you're the main character of your story, has a desire that is unfulfilled. In fact, the word I want actually means desiring without having. How could you want something you already have? Let's talk about that later on, okay? How could you want what you already have? So when you and I say want, I want, we mean I desire without having, which is another way of saying I want to, but I can't, okay? So the first level that people naturally grow into is a dependent level in which we depend on another in order to feel whole. I need you. I need a relationship. I need to feel loved. I need to belong in order to feel love, accepted, in order to feel whole and complete. And so this has been fed to you through all the storylines that you've ever seen that had a dramatic theme, in which two people who are part of a whole join together, and there's all this romantic music that starts, and they're running towards each other, slow motion on the beach at sunset, you know, and then they finally embrace it, you know, and the music swells up, and then they kiss, and then we just imagine that everything is fine after that forevermore. Doesn't work out that way, does it? Because then there's children to raise and bills to pay and dishes to do and cars to pay for and college educations and illnesses and in-laws and just about everything else that you can think of that weren't in that story at the moment when they were working it all out with this final embrace. You see, so I need another to be whole and complete is a stage of development. I need a relationship in order to feel whole, in order to be whole. You complete me. You know, I'm made for you. You are made for me. I need you. Those are all phrases and language that has been given to us by our environment throughout history. It's been going on for a lot longer than you and I have been around. You didn't get to make up this game. You just inherited it. You grew up related to, by blood, the people who were in that game already. And so you very quickly learned that the model of love was this one. I need someone to feel whole and complete and to belong. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. It is a level of growth and development that, in fact, is necessary to go through, excuse me. It's a level of growth and development that would be necessary to go through in order to arrive at another stage. Now, you don't arrive at the next stage of development without first having a severe breakdown. And by a severe breakdown, I mean that you have a break in your well-being, meaning you no longer feel loved, or you don't love, or you don't communicate. So you'll have a breakdown in well-being, in finances, relationships, health. You'll have a breakdown in communication. You won't be able to communicate with this person anymore. The communications will be all wrong. Every time you try to communicate, it turns into a fight. In other words, communication like open, honest, complete, fulfilling, uplifting communication, that's just out of the picture altogether. So you'll have a break in belonging, well-being, and communication. You will then have a breakdown in your reality, meaning everything that you thought was real will now start to look like it's not so real. You'll start to be questioning everything. And hopefully you'll begin to question yourself as well. Usually people just start questioning their environment. Is that person good? Are they lying about me? Do they love me? Do they not love me? Are they my friend? They're not my friend. Should I stay married or should I not stay married? Or should I, blah, blah, blah. So usually most people's focus is outward. They're focusing outward, trying to find out who or what is the problem. Now, if you have a massive enough breakdown, you may begin to question yourself, and that would be the start of something. So why am I telling you all this? I'd like to save you a few years off of your life, and I'd like to save you the effort. You could begin to start self-questioning, and I don't mean self-questioning like doubting yourself, but in self-questioning like introspection, like reflecting and looking at within oneself. And that's what meditation's about. That's what prayer's about. That's what taking time in nature and spending time with whatever you consider to be a higher power, so that you begin to question your own existence and your own thoughts. You begin to actually wonder about the truth rather than assume you know it because somebody told it to you, or you read it in a book, or some wise teacher said this, which is basically the highest level of what passes for wisdom that most people ever ever have is some wise person once said. And so we all have little quotes and stuff that we keep around, or that we put on the refrigerator or our Facebook page or something, as if we had thought about that ourselves. No, somebody else thought it, somebody else said it, somebody else wrote it, somebody else copied it and pasted it someplace, and then you copied it and said, that sounds good. And if I paste that up there, then everybody will think that, because I'm aligned with that's my own thinking as well. So that's having an inauthentic relationship with yourself. I would much rather see you paste only your own quotes. Only the things that you actually thought about and came up with. That would be something that would be worth sharing. So you don't get to this second level. Let's talk about that. We'll talk about the second level here. You don't get to this second level without first having some kind of a breakdown, and maybe you might have to have several of those until you learn the lesson, whatever that lesson is that you need to learn. Now, I could tell you what it is, but it wouldn't do you any good. It will go in one ear and out the other because you have to learn it for yourself. So I'm going to leave that for you to discover. But there's something that you need to learn about yourself and about your relationship with other people in order to have that phase of your life get complete. And I'll identify it one more time. That phase of life that I'm talking about is, I need a relationship in order to feel complete. That's a stage of development. You can spend your entire life there, and I can promise you that it'll be pretty unsatisfying, because at the end of your life, you will find that all people, will sooner or later disappoint you if you dedicate your life and depend upon somebody else being reliable in order for you to feel whole and complete. You're in deep trouble. You're in deep trouble because people are unreliable and they'll break your heart. And it's not because they're bad, but you do the same thing. You break their heart. You're a disappointment to a lot of people. Sooner or later, somebody will disappoint you. And if it's the person that you are depending on in order to feel whole and complete, well, then you're going to be in deep trouble. That's actually good. That deep trouble is actually good because it is a signal from your subconscious mind that the way you're seeing the world and your relationship to the world and to yourself doesn't work, and it's time to look deeper and to learn more and to grow from the ashes, if you will, grow from the rubble and the debris of your destroyed life into a more refined, a more sophisticated, a more complete, a more transformed, a more wholesome, wiser individual. And so through this process of transformation, which can happen in a number of ways, anybody that tells you they have the only way or the best way to transform yourself, I would run away from them. Okay? Personally, I would run away from them, because especially if they tell you it's the only way. Now, a lot of people will say, I got the best way. I might even say that, okay? Although I try to avoid such egotism. But a lot of people will say they have the only way. And if they have the only way, then they themselves are trapped within a model of reality, and they're believing their own BS as far as I'm concerned, okay? They're believing their own illusionary projection into the world, okay? It's inauthentic. Nobody has the only way, because there's many, many ways. That's like saying if there was an island in the ocean in which on that island there was everything that you wanted, needed, and that all great souls will eventually converge upon this place. That's like saying there's only one way to get there, though. It's in the middle of the ocean, but there's only one way to get there, and I got it, right? That would be a complete lie. All right, so there's as many ways to get to the island. You could fly. You could take any number of kind of water vehicles. There's lots of ways to get to that place. So I don't have the best way, and I certainly don't have the only way. However, I've spent a lifetime creating a way so that others could find their way, because your way is going to be your way. And if I can be of assistance to you, if Embrace Growth can be of assistance to you, if my wife, Dr. Azita Sayan, could be of assistance to you, that's what our life is about. That's what we're here to do. And so it's a great honor to have the privilege of participating in your life and actually providing a way for you to discover your own path to awakening. So this next level that I'm talking about is a level in which you arrive at a state that you could call, I didn't say it is called, I didn't say it's the only way to call it. It could be called whole and complete. You're whole, you're complete, you have healthy boundaries, you know who you are, you know what you will stand for, you know what you won't put up with. In other words, you're well. You're financially well, you're physically well, you're emotionally well, you're spiritually connected and well. In other words, you're whole and happy and complete, and you're doing great. And you don't need anyone. You don't need anyone to be complete. You're at a place of completion in your life. There's a transformation that has taken place. You've gone through some heavy illusionary state of mind in which you imagined that you needed someone else to be whole and complete. That turned out however it turned out, but however it turned out was painful enough that you actually grew beyond it, went through it to the other side. You didn't get trapped in it and stuck in it and become an addict or resigned or depressed or suicidal. You grew through it and came out the other side, and now you're so strong and secure and whole and complete in yourself that you literally have this state of mind that while I'm here to share my life with others, I don't have to, I don't need to. And that's a great place to be, and there are many seminars and workshops that I've taken and that you've maybe taken yourself that will get you there. You can get to that place. You can get to a place of being whole and complete and where you really don't need anyone. And so in that state, you begin to discover something. In that state, I call it get used to being alone. Okay? And here's why. Because I'm going to backtrack just a little bit. At every level that I'm going to talk about here today, and I'm talking about 3 different levels, if you will, and the levels is not an accurate way of speaking, okay? Levels makes it seem like there's a low and a high and a middle and so forth, right? And that one's better than the other. That's not actually accurate, okay? So for lack of a better term, I'm calling it levels because our mind understands that better. However, if they're levels of anything, they are levels of sophistication in terms of being more closer to the truth, more authentic, and having less baggage and less issues and problems. Each level, you are sending out a vibratory frequency. You are participating in a vibratory frequency. Thoughts have vibrations and frequencies and can be picked up and felt by others. Emotions, thoughts, ideas vibrate a certain frequency, and who is attracted to those thoughts and feelings are people who are on that same level. Because people tend to like those who are like us, you like what's like you, right? Because people tend to like those who are like them, you are attracted to and others are attracted to you who are on that same vibratory level. So if you're on the level of, I depend on another one to be whole and complete, to feel loved and to feel whole into myself, you will only attract or be attracted to those who are on that vibratory level. These other vibratory levels, you may encounter people like that, but they won't interest you. They won't be accessible to you. Or if you're interested in them, they won't be interested in you anyhow, because they'll see that you're incomplete and that you need someone. And somebody who is on the next level, if you will, who is whole and complete, doesn't want to hang out with people, doesn't want to marry or have relationships with or get involved with people who need someone else to be complete. They just wouldn't be interested. They've been there. They know how that turns out. It doesn't turn out well, so they're not interested. So they won't even be attracted to you even if you're attracted to them. Well, people who are whole and complete and don't need anyone, I call it get used to being alone, because who are you going to run into? Other people like yourself who are also whole and complete and don't need anyone. Now, they may want to play. They may want to have fun together. They may want to even fight and get involved and have some kind of a dramatic experience together, but they don't really take it to heart because it's not going to threaten who they really are. They're whole and complete and they don't need anyone. In that state, something is possible but doesn't often happen. Something is possible, and that is that each person, a whole man who is a man unto himself and he doesn't need a woman in order to be happy, a woman who is whole and complete unto herself and doesn't need a man around to feel happy and loved and wonderful and sexy, they can be attracted to each other, but you might want to notice that they might live together and share the bills, and they may even have a child together. And not get married. Or they may even get married, but they live an independent life with from each other, and it's really two single people living together, kind of like a business deal. It's a 50-50 relationship. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that kind of relationship. I'm not criticizing it. I'm pointing it out and distinguishing it, because you may find yourself in that relationship in which it's kind of 50-50. He's got his income, she's got her income. They may even maintain separate checking accounts. They may keep a little joint account in the middle to pay the bills, but each one has to pay 50-50 or whatever it is, right? It's a business arrangement, and it's not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just that something is possible that is not being realized here. In that kind of a relationship, there is something possible that never quite gets connected and fulfilled, unless it does, right? And if it does, you may find yourself on the next level of relationship, the one that I call being whole isn't enough. Being whole is not enough. You want to go beyond wholeness. You want to go beyond your own self-sufficient happiness and well-being and full self-expression. In other words, life is no longer about you and you getting whole, you getting complete, you getting fulfilled. That has already so happened and is a part of your everyday life and your self-expression that you seek something greater than that as a natural outcome of your wholeness and completion. Whether you're a man or a woman, you get to this place in your life where, wow, my finances are handled, my relationships are going great, I can have a man or a woman in my life if I want to. I don't need to, and both are fine. I get along with people. My life is successful. In other words, you're in a great space, and there's something that is possible now, and you couldn't do it on your own. You could never do it on your own, or you would have already done it. You've already done everything that you could do on your own as far as your spiritual development, your financial development. Now you seek a partner with whom to share your life so that you can go beyond your own personal self-completion. In that state, your life is no longer about just you, and it's not just about your partner either. And it's not about this cool thing that you have together called a relationship or a marriage or whatever you want to call it. It's beyond that. Your relationship becomes something that creates a possibility for the world, for others, for some people that you'll never meet, people that you may never know that you did it. And it won't matter. You will be living into a possibility that is beyond your wholeness and completion, and you can't get there unless you arrive at the state of wholeness and completion first. So you get to a place where I don't need a mate, but I desire a mate. I want not somebody to serve me or help me be complete, but I want to open myself and surrender myself to somebody who is a peer, somebody who is not like me. I'm not looking for somebody who is like me. I'm looking for somebody who has got as many differences as possible so that they can contribute what I can't see, what I can't experience, and I can contribute what they can't see and they can't experience. Not for me and them, not for our relationship, although that will get handled in the process, but for the sake of the greater good, for the sake of mankind, for the sake of humanity, our love of humanity, our love of life is the source of our union, the source of our relationship. In this state, this third stage, if you will, it requires letting go of so much that you have accomplished. It requires, to become whole and complete unto oneself. The second stage that I spoke about requires a great deal of work on oneself. It requires a certain amount of discipline and a certain amount of humility and introspection, and it requires a certain amount of surrendering to the truth of life, and coming to terms with yourself. And all of those are great accomplishments. And so you feel pretty good about yourself because you've done the work. And to feel good about oneself doesn't mean that you have an inflated ego or that you're, so proud of yourself because you're whole and complete. That would be an inauthentic imitation of that state. Okay, there are people who inauthentically pose themselves as being in such a state. Why? Because they need somebody. They need somebody to feel complete. They need admiration. They need, they need people to admire them and look up to them. So they pretend or pose to be something they're not. We're not talking about that. I'm talking about people who actually arrive at a state of wholeness and completion. It requires a certain amount of humility and self-introspection and self-respect and love. And so those are all vital and good and important qualities. However, they will not get you where the third stage is going. They won't get you there. Whatever it is that you did to get to where you're at, it won't get you where you're going. It just got you to where you're at. It will not get you to where you're going. In fact, if you enter into this third stage of relationship where that we're calling I don't need anyone and I desire to have a mate, not because I need it, but because I want to go beyond wholeness and completion, then pretty much everything that you thought was vital and important about who you've become will be put into question once again. Because if you want to go beyond what you could do by yourself and include somebody who is your equal and maybe even your superior in that relationship, then you have to be willing to let go of everything you thought you know. And most people will never ever get there because this is the hardest stage. Not hardest, it's actually the easiest, but it's the hardest for the ego. And to live in the world, you have to have an ego, you have to have a personality, you have to have a who you think you are. You have a who you think you are. And you go around telling people things like, I'm this kind of person, I'm the kind of person that X, right? These are my thoughts, these are my feelings, this is what I think about, this is my point of view, this is my opinion, right? And so you have to value yourself as this personality, which I'm calling an ego, in order to even speak up about anything. So thank God you got an ego, that's great. Thank God that you had enough self-respect and love and personal discipline to care enough about yourself to lift yourself up out of the morass of codependent relationships and get to a state of mind in which you now actually love yourself and respect yourself and think highly of yourself and expect others to treat you accordingly. But that takes something that we have to call ego, because it is a projection of oneself into the world so as to be able to communicate. If you didn't have an ego, you could just sit and meditate all the time and people could say and do whatever they wanted to around you and about you, and you just let it go by. It wouldn't matter. So you have to have an ego in order to even be in the world, and so don't fall under the illusion that many people have, adopted because they have misinterpreted certain Buddhist quotes or other wise sounding quotes from wise men or women that they never met. Don't get caught up in that, in thinking that the ego is a bad thing. The ego will get you in trouble, but that's when it's out of control. If you let your ego get out of control, it's obvious that it'll get you in trouble, okay? So we don't need to even talk about that. That's obvious, right? I'm talking about when the ego is a healthy thing to have and it can put a limit on what's available to you. Why? Because its job is to maintain a personal presence in the world. So what would happen if that got put into question and you were obliged? Not because somebody made you, but because you chose a path in which the ego had to stay behind. In which even the great parts of you were put into question. Even all the noble, wonderful parts of you, you had to now question those things. Who would want to do that? What purpose would it serve? What's the point, right? Those are all the voices of the ego. Those are all the voices saying, why would you put that into question? That's useless. Where are you going to go with that? Right? Because it seems like stepping off into the void. So if you get to this third stage where it's like, I don't really need anyone, but I desire, and, not but and I desire to have a partner, a mate, you're going to need to create a structure for the fulfillment of that. In other words, this kind of wholeness and completion doesn't just happen. It doesn't just happen. You can't just say, okay, well, I desire it and therefore it is. You actually have to cause it into existence. You actually have to set yourself up to win. So it's funny. You have to let go of the ego during the process, but you need the ego to even get started. You would have to say, okay, I want a mate to share my life with and to take me beyond the state where I currently am. And then you would need to do something like find one, right? Attract the mate that is your equal or your peer. And then you would have to deal with whatever obstacles are going to be in the way of that, because these kind of people don't come along without some kind of waves around them. Because don't forget, they don't need you either, right? You don't need them, they don't need you, so you're going to have to do something to even cause that connection to take place. You're going to have to go someplace, do something, put something in your calendar. You're going to have to dress for the occasion. You're going to have to spend money on it. You're going to have to work out and get yourself ready for it. You're going to have to intend it and cause it and do it every day. And it's not going to be happening by accident. That's the weird thing about it. So that's why most people never get to that stage, because it actually takes some structure and discipline, and it takes some doing, and it takes some intentionality, and there is absolutely no guarantees that it'll work at all. And along the way, everything that you thought was so great and important about yourself gets put into question. Like it becomes apparent that all of your talents and abilities and charms and special winning formulas and cool ways of being are insufficient. They're not good enough. They don't make it. It doesn't work. Okay? It's like taking an old-time tape recorder or cassette player to an Apple convention and expecting anybody to care about it, okay? Other than it's sort of interesting, but it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter anymore. So many of your talents and abilities that you have developed throughout a lifetime, who you have every right in the world to feel great about and to be proud of and to be known as that, will not be sufficient. They'll be part of it, but they won't be sufficient to the possibility that is available beyond wholeness and completion. It'll take something greater than you've ever come up with yourself, because, like I said earlier, if you could have done it, you would have already done it. You can't do it by yourself, and that's why you desire a partner to take you beyond this wholeness and completion into an entirely new state called what's possible. I'm going to go ahead and take this call. Hello, this is Gregory. You're live on the air.
Hi, Mr. Morgan. How are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you.
Good. I have a quick question for you.
Sure.
Regarding the hypnotherapy and hypnosis, and then because of your professional, I just want to have your opinion about the process. Does it work, and how many sessions somebody has to go to get the results? And what's your take on it, please? I'm going to listen from TV.
No, I won't do that. People always want to call and then just throw a question out there and then sit back and watch me do it, and I'm not going to do that. I'll have a dialogue with you.
Sure.
Okay? Your question is a bit like this. If I went to an architect and I said, what do you think about architecture, and how much does it cost, and how much time would it take, and does it really work to build a house?
Right.
Do you see how many unanswered questions there are in that dialogue?
Sure.
There's millions of unanswered questions. Well, do you want a house? Do you have a house? Do you have a location? Is it on the beach, in the mountains, on flat land? What country is it in? Do you want a two-story house or a one-story house? Will you be living in it alone or with your whole family? How long will you be living there? What's your budget? Would you like to, do you want a really wonderful house, or do you want just a nice little sufficient house? Is the house for you, or is it for your son and daughter? There's so many questions that are unanswered in the question that you just asked me. So does hypnotherapy work? Yes. In every case, in all cases, in the whole world, with everybody? No.
Right.
Right? So, I mean, why would you ask me the question about hypnotherapy? Because you must have some issue that you'd like to address. In other words, if I'm an architect, I'm saying, do you want a house?
Right.
Why are you asking me architecture questions if you don't want a house? So why don't you ask me a specific question about your life and I can answer it?
Basically, like, like I got, you get the advertisement around that hypnotherapy can help a lot of people, right? That's what I was.
Well, that's like saying, again, using my metaphor, architecture is a good idea if you want to build a house.
Right.
You hear that, probably true, right?
Maybe my question would be like this: that does hypnotherapy would be a faster way to somebody get a result in terms of getting more confidence, get out of depression, or
Okay, so now we're talking about confidence in depression and different ways to get out of it, and hypnotherapy being one of those.
right? And basically, I want to have your opinion. That have you seen results? Like, do you recommend that?
Well, I'm a hypnotherapist, so I'm obviously going to recommend it. And the only reason I'm a hypnotherapist is because it works. And I certainly wouldn't do something that doesn't work because I don't have time for that, and it would be inauthentic. So if that's the only question you have, do I think hypnotherapy works? Yes, it works. Does it work for everybody all the time? In order to have sessions with me, I actually interview people to find out what it is they're dealing with and what have they done in the past to deal with it. And a number of other questions that I won't go down the whole list here, but in other words, it has to be a fit. Somebody who is depressed and taking antidepressants and has been for a long time and who has been to a dozen psychologists and psychiatrists and they're still depressed, one of two things. They could be the perfect candidate for hypnotherapy, or they could be the worst possible person to ever try hypnotherapy. If they have a fundamental belief, who they are is a biochemical, mechanical stimulus response reactivation machine that can be altered by chemicals, then hypnotherapy may not be a very good fit. If they truly believe that, if they're stuck with that belief and they're unwilling to question that, then they should just keep trying to take chemicals and alter their state of mind. That to me is insanity, of course, because nothing is further from the truth. Do we have a biochemical structure that affects our thinking? Yep, we sure do. But there's something even more powerful than that that causes the formation of the biochemical structure that you're trying to alter, and that is your thoughts. Reality, what you and I call real, physical reality, is got a source other than physical. And that's not just some kind of woo-woo spiritual belief. That's physics. That's science. All things that you and I call real are made up of something that can't legitimately, scientifically be called real. And that's the conclusion that physicists and scientists have come to. They don't know what it is, but they know that something's there that they can't see, touch, taste, hear, smell, or measure, but there's something causing it. Something caused your brain, caused your life, caused your fingers, caused your entire reality, you see. Hypnotherapy is actually able to have you in a very relaxed and focused state of mind, which is a very good, healthy state of mind, right? To be relaxed and highly focused, that's a great place to be. It's pleasurable. It's actually fun and interesting. And then from that state of mind that's relaxed and very well, sort of buoyant state of mind, to then look back on one's life and get straight to the source, a misconception or a misunderstanding of an event. Sometimes you see, everybody has painful events in their life. Everybody has painful occurrences in their life. You don't get through life without having painful occurrences, right?
Yes.
You don't have to be a scientist to figure that out, right? Rocks are hard, water is wet, and human beings have bad experiences. Just the way it is. It's not good, it's not bad, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. It's not good or bad that people have painful experiences. It's just life, right? So, but people have painful experiences and then they make that mean something. And that meaning that they gave this painful experience, this experience that they didn't like, this experience, I don't care if it was, you fell off your tricycle or your mother slapped your face or somebody molested you, something bad happened and you didn't like it and it shouldn't have happened. You could say it shouldn't happen. Well, that's not true. It happened, so it happened. And to say it shouldn't happen is already an interpretation of what happened, you see?
Right.
Human beings make interpretations of things that happened, and then they relate to that meaning, and they can ruin their whole life over it.
So in hypnotherapy, then basically the therapist will correct the interpretation, right?
Well, you go back to that interpretation, and I've just done it with you just now. You could. We didn't talk about your specific event, but I got you to see that whatever happened just happened, right?
Right.
The piano fell out of the window and crushed the cat. I use that example, but because it's like a big thing, but it was terrible, tragic thing that happens in life, but it just happened.
Yes.
Right? And whoever did it has had bad things happen to them too, right?
Right.
And so what I'm just saying is not that it's all right or that you should tolerate it or you should just get over it, but when we use the words get over it, this is a very good, interesting phrase in hypnotherapy.
Oh, I see.
If you could rise above the incident that happened and look down upon it from your present state of mind today, as an adult, as a fully developed human being with all of the capacities, mental and physical capacities that you have today, and you looked at that, whatever happened to that child, you would see, that was terrible, that was awful, or whatever. But if it happened to you today, you wouldn't be all messed up about it, right?
Right.
So part of the work that I do with people in hypnotherapy is also named timeline therapy. You take people back along the stream of time so that they can look at the incident today through new eyes, with new powers, new capacities, new abilities that they didn't have back then. And they can get over it. They rise over the experience. That's really what the term get over it means. It means to rise above into a more refined, sophisticated, and enlightened state of mind and view it again from new eyes, from a newer and higher perspective. When you see your life through new eyes, you have a new life. If you were given some dark glasses from birth and you had to spend your whole life wearing those dark glasses and you didn't even know you had them on, and then one day somebody took those glasses off and all the colors were really bright and vivid and you saw colors that you'd never seen before, you wouldn't want to put those glasses back on. You'd see the world in a whole new way, and you could always go back to that old way of seeing if you wanted to, that depressed way of being. You could, but it would be hard to. You would actually have to be kind of like determined to be depressed if you wanted to go back that way. And most people wouldn't. And most people don't. Once they have seen their life from a new perspective, their life is different. People wake up and they don't want to go back to sleep. They don't want to go back to pretending that they're miserable. And they certainly don't want to take drugs to drug them into trying to believe that everything's okay when it already is okay. Okay? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you back here again next week on Love Talk.